this episode we're continuing to drive down south, down the west coast of Florida, towards the Everglades at the southern tip of Florida, to see if we can find some gators. Not a lot to see as we drove down the west coast. It's a kind of a retirement area within the US. A lot of older people living there, a lot of traffic accidents as a result, and some boating communities, but not a lot of activity going on in terms of people creating new things. Driving past St. Petersburg, next to Tampa, we continued on down to Naples, which we wanted to stop at so that we could position ourselves to go and do some visits to the Everglades, which might be more interesting.
We stopped by the Ringling Museum in Sarasota, Florida, which is a museum about the circus that the Ringling Brothers started back in the 1880s, and it started out in Wisconsin. They had a miniature scale version of the circus setup, and the thing that struck me the most was the planning that must have been involved in the setup and teardown and bringing this circus from place to place. They visited more than 250 cities in a year. The grounds were also beautiful and is the site of the home of the Ringling Brother family. There are also some other exhibitions in addition to the Circus Museum on Asian art and glass art.
So the Everglades are a natural region of tropical wetlands in the southern area of Florida, and they're a large drainage basin from the Lake Okeechobee body of water. There's actually a lot of variety down in the Everglades, ranging from cypress swamps to marshland to mangrove forests and tropical hardwood areas. And the word Okeechobee means river of grass, so it's impacted by the seasonal changes, drought in the summer and lots of water to deal with in the wet season. So hurricane damage is a concern here. Housing is either very low cost, cheap housing, or permanent structures are built up on stilts so that when the storm surge comes in they can survive it. So this is the bottom tip of Florida. Very quiet, very isolated. Lots of birds and animals and quiet sandy beaches. Very few people. But enough of all that quiet life. We wanted to see some big alligators and airboats.
Being very calm. He's used to people holding him. He likes the back of the neck area. There you go. Wow.
Hey Dawn, who does this alligator's feet remind you of?
He's doing pretty good though. He likes you.
Once on the airboat, we started creeping slowly through the channels that had been cut through the mangrove swamps, and there was still a lot of hurricane damage from the recent hurricanes and debris in the water, but generally the mangroves are fairly unique trees in that they can survive in salt water. The way they do that is to extract the salt and deposit it into their leaves, and then their leaves, when the salt content is very high, drop off into the water, and that's the reason why the water is brown from all these mangrove leaves that have dropped into it. Of course, the airboat goes quite fast once it gets its speed up, and if it crashes into a log and everybody gets tossed into the water, these waters are full of alligators, so you'd be eaten alive and turned into alligator poop fairly rapidly. Of course, if my niece Willow was with us, she's quite young and probably quite tender and juicy, so we could, instead of being eaten ourselves, we could throw her in first, and then the alligators would eat her, and we could probably then, swim away and escape. So we can do that in the future when she visits us next. But alongside the alligators, there's lots of other animals that live in the mangrove swamps. Here's a family of raccoons, including a little baby down below, that you have to give. They'll give you a high five to get some food, and they're quite used to tourists coming up and giving them some tidbits. They also have a big problem with Burmese pythons that have infested the area, so big, huge 20-foot long pythons and alligators make this place quite inhospitable, so you wouldn't want to go for a swim in these waters. I think our airboat driver has way too much fun in his job. These airboats are made out of aluminium, and they have a very shallow draft, maybe 6 inches, so they can skip over anything that they encounter, like logs or alligators or anything that's in the water. And but they've got a completely flat bottom, so that means once the air starts, once they start moving, they can really whiz once they get up to speed. They don't accelerate very fast, but once they do get going, they're quite maneuverable and can really get up and shift. These airboats, they kind of look very much homemade, welded up in aluminum with a car engine inside them and a radiator that's been rigged up, simple throttle go backwards and forwards, and then a linkage through a cable to 2 big air rudders on the back that simply give it steerage left or right. There's no brakes, it's just throttle on the engine that controls the speed of the fan, with a direct coupling to the engine crankshaft, and 2 big aluminum rudders on the back. Very simple. These alligators are generally very lazy beasts. They just lie around on riverbanks doing absolutely nothing, not even moving. And only when they get hungry and they see something that's close by do they get up and launch at them and eat them. We even found one dead alligator that was upside down floating in the water with a couple of vultures sitting on it waiting for their dinner. Next up, we relocated to an area southeast of Florida and a little town called Homestead next to Florida City, where they have some more national parks. Very quiet area again at the eastern edge of the Everglades. And we sat there for a while before going up to see what Miami was all about. So this was again an agricultural area. They were even growing corn, and lots of little nurseries selling all kinds of various fruit trees and stuff. We took the day to drive down to the very bottom southeastern tip of Florida, which is a national park again, and totally empty and a very desolate spot down on the beach there. Once parked up and plugged in and happily charging, we'll head off for Miami. So next episode we'll show you what we got up to in Miami, and then we're going to head 100 miles east of Miami.